Right, hello everyone. I'll give you a little bit of a different lesson rather than physical. I want to delve into the more psychological side of things. This was prompted by a post that somebody put on one of the main UC group page by a person called Lars Stelitz, I think is how you pronounce it. Anyway, he asked a very common question: does anyone suffer from massive adrenaline dump when shit and fan meet, or the shit goes south, as he put it? Well, talking about fear, adrenaline, the effect it has on your performance, etc. So I want to spend a bit of time on that. In regards to this subject, I've covered it many times before, and of course, you know, as things evolve, you might look at things in a slightly different way, or it might just emphatically confirm what you already knew and underline its importance. So namely, this situation that we're currently in now, when all is blown over, there's a good chance that we're all going to be very different people. You should have had a good look at yourself during this time and self-examined people around you and stuff like that, and looked at your own ideas and values and your core belief systems, and you should spend some time looking inward, some self-awareness, you know, at your current priorities, if you like. You know, what is it, if anything, has this taught you about yourself, about what's important, about what's not? But we are always going to be in a position of uncomfortable, and whenever you're in a position of uncomfortable, there's trepidation, there's a chemical cocktail of adrenaline reduced into the body, anything unknown. So definition of fear, the dictionary definition is: fear is defined as an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by the anticipation or awareness of danger. Basically, trepidation of something that's unfamiliar to you and unknown creates fear. Fear is really what it's misinterpreted for, when really is anything that we don't understand, or we find ourselves under threat from. You get this little almond-shaped gland under the hypothalamus called the amygdala, and the amygdala, there's two that come around like that behind the hypothalamus, is the threat detecting organ in the brain. And when instinctual danger is recognised, unfamiliarity could be, an unfamiliar event could be misinterpreted for danger, whether it's innocent or damaging by meaning, is this threat detecting organ in the brain that triggers a response, a chemical cocktail response, when it senses danger. So if we're looking at context of violence, which of course we are, because you could have trepidation about all sorts of things, trepidation about what's going on right now, trepidation about what it'll be like when this is all over and it's all done. You know, lots of trepidation. Don't mistake it for being anything other than another milder dose of adrenaline and fear. That's what it is. So Jeff Thompson talked a long time ago about the adrenal map. He was the first to say, the very first to say, no fear, written K-N-O-W, fear. And he did an adrenal map which related to life I can relate to when working on the doors, where you would have a place of reputation that you had to go and work. So there's going to be confrontations. You have pre-fight confrontation even before you're at your place of work, and then you get a confrontational dynamic which will trigger all sorts of, could be slow release adrenaline as there's a build up before it kicks off, or it could be instantaneous with absolutely no intel whatsoever. When you get a massive adrenal dump, that's the worst, that's the hardest to deal with. And when adrenaline floods your body, if you, in my experience, immediately act, you will be functional. If you can channel it immediately into an explosion of movement, you will be very functional. If there's a need to pause, hesitate, or tactically decide as and when to do that, well, that can be difficult, because the amygdala triggers a heart rate, an escalation in your heart rate. And when this heart rate occurs, you lose various functions, both in a physiological sense and a cognitive sense. So Many graphs have been written about this before, many tests have been done, do your research. So basically, at 60 beats per minute, let's say, normal activity is happening. If your heart rate goes up to 90 beats per minute or beyond, fine motor skills will reduce now. 125 beats per minute, complex motor skills start to deteriorate. 150 beats per minute, there starts to become loss of peripheral vision, positional dysphagia, loss of cognitive function, and auditory exclusion. So let's explain what's happening there. As your heart rate spikes, and it's not going to go gradual like that, it can go instantaneously up to beyond 200, if depending on the stress of the adrenal dump. Understand what's happening. Blood is withdrawn from the frontal part of your brain, and you are forced into a limbic state. So you're no longer cognitive, limbic, back to instinctive thinking brain, if you like, right, where you are left with the intelligence of a dog. All you know is run, fight, or freeze. So in terms of heart rate control, if your heart rate was 175 beats per minute, fight or flight is kicked in already, and if not, there's a state of hypervigilance, which is your freezing, right? Irrational thoughts, because you're no longer cognitive, which could lead to submissive behaviour and loss of bowel and bladder function, and various other things, right? The simplest way to think about it is the colour codes, right? So Jeff Cooper done this chart many years ago. Condition white, unprepared, unready to take action. You're fucking oblivious, right? So you're calm and you're cool because you're fucking daydreaming. Where you should be is condition yellow. So you're prepared with alert, relaxed awareness. So you've got good situational awareness. Well, if everything's yonky-dory at this point, then you're comfortable. You're consciously comfortable, if you like. But if you was to spot something out of the ordinary, it was to trigger some kind of a threat via the amygdala, let's say, you would go to condition orange, and with condition orange, what would also accompany condition orange is a spike in your heart rate as your heart rate starts to increase. So Jeff Cooper was a genius because he talked about the colour codes, which is the only thing that people talk about really in regards to it. But what they don't talk about is how he attached emotional stress and deterioration of performance to it. So he was one of the earliest people to do that. Other people that you should see for research on this subject are Grossman and of course Bruce Siddle. They're the two main pioneers that researched effects of physical performance under combat stress, right? What we know as adrenaline or shit yourself, right? Basically, as soon as you get this spike, depending on how, if this is just something that triggers you, what's that? But you're cognitively deciding on as to whether or not it's a threat, well then you're still calm, but there's palpitations. The second that you realise confirmed threat is when things can start to go awry, particularly now when you need to go to condition red and you need to either run or you need to fight. In which case then, if you have experience of the event before, you put yourself in harm's way before, you are familiar with adrenaline, you will come to expect it and accept it into your body, and you'll understand exactly what those conditions are as if you're at a traffic lights. But if not, and you've got no experience of it whatsoever before, then it's going to be very daunting. And it can be so daunting, in fact, that the person would just completely go into a state of hypervigilance and freeze because the heart rate is just instantaneously gone bang beyond 175 to 200 beats. It's literally beating in your head, and you are no longer cognitive for a long time. So now you are confused and you're disorientated. And what you'll also find now is that blood will leave the extremities of your arms and legs to go to where it's needed most, your heart and lungs. And your legs will feel heavy and they will shake and your hands will shake. Your blood will also leave the frontal part of your brain, like I said before, and to become more limbic, so you will no longer be cognitive. You are going, in point of fact, from after you get this, depending on the alarm of the heart rate, what will ensue after that is a chemical cocktail, like a neural surge that will take you from parasympathetic nervous system to sympathetic nervous system. So think about it as a big multifunctional building complex, powers everything, lights, heating, computers, you name it, a big fucking network of information coming out from one cell. Then imagine that shutting down. And there's a few seconds of a stutter and a stagger, and then emergency generators come on. Well, when the emergency generators come on, you've just gone from parasympathetic nervous system, which was your natural way of doing things without thought, to sympathetic nervous system, where now you are mid-brain, reptile brain, if you like, and you are left with very, very basic, simple instinctual responses, i.e. fight, flight, or freeze. If you have immediately acted, because you've gone from yellow, orange, poof, to red, to a point where you have to act immediately, then it is very, very feasible to utilise the adrenaline to maximum to your advantage. You will find yourself faster, stronger, more anaesthetised to pain in that moment. This is the adrenaline flooding around your body now as you pre-fight. Nothing's happened yet, but it's about to. Fucking time distortion's kicked in. 5 minutes feels like 5 hours. And there's this build-up of the adrenal release. It's slower release, but it's very quite corrosive. Well, in that moment, the weaker-minded subject, or the subject that had not been familiar with this experience before, of having an adrenal dump like that, through the threat of violence, let's say, will have no fucking understanding. They have no anticipation that it's coming and no understanding of what's happening. So the first thing is to understand that the majority of modern person in modern society is quite unfamiliar with that response, and unless they've been attacked, assaulted, and they're pretty much triggered it now, what's going to happen in the imminent future, etc. Now they will start to get familiar with the effects of adrenaline. But outside of our grandfather's generation, let's say, where people were much more used to being experienced with adrenaline, and as they go back further in time, and the harder life had got, the more adrenaline was present. So it's too much of things, too easy, has made people soft. And there's consequences to that. And the consequences to that are, you've probably never been bark taping, nobody's ever been aggressive, no one's ever manhandled you. So you can learn all the physical tools and skills that you want in the world. It's not going to help you if that adrenaline hits you for the first time and you're totally bewildered as to what's going on. So the key to controlling adrenaline, if you like, learning to get a handle on fear in layman terms, would be, first of all, do your fucking research. Research what happens to the body when the heart escalates beyond a certain beats per minute, triggered by the amygdala that says, I'm in fucking danger. What happens? Well, heart rate massively escalates, which is the trigger, as the catalyst. And from there, depending on how fast you go through the beats per minute escalating, 90 to 115, 125, 145, etc., you could just go boom straight up to 200 plus. Various functions will be lost along the way. So as a record of study, it's been said that around 60 beats per minute normal activity, 90 beats per minute fine motor skills start to reduce, 125 beats per minute complex motor skills start to deteriorate, and 150 beats per minute loss of peripheral vision, loss of cognitive function, and auditory exclusion. 175 beats per minute fight and flight, freezing, irrational thoughts, submissive behaviour, loss of bowel and bladder function. Well, there's a number of side effects that will occur. Let me give you them. As the heart rate starts to escalate, you will get pre-fight shakes, right? So your legs and possibly other limbs will shake uncontrollably. So understand what's happening there. So blood is being withdrawn from your extremities to go to your heart and lungs, where it's needed most for survival, which makes you feel numbish and heavier, which is why you are tremoring. And it's also why fine motor skill has now left you, because hand-eye coordination is not possible in this moment. And it's also why, if you were to be cut now or wounded, you should bleed less and clot faster. So there's a method behind the madness in adrenaline. You just need to research the effects and understand. Pale or pallid skin tone. This is due to blood leaving the surface of the skin to be better employed elsewhere. This is also nature's way of helping you out should you sustain a cut and you bleed less, like I said. Right, so it's natural. But what do we see when we see walk on white as a sheet? Oh, I'm scared. Oh, he's white as a ghost. He's fucking scared. We don't think, oh, that's just the effects of adrenaline. You know, his blood's been withdrawn from the surface to go where it's needed, heart and lungs. No, we don't see that. We just see scared. So first of all, understand what's going on. So heart rate goes above a certain level, triggered by the amygdala because of a potentially perceived fearful event, which then triggers the escalation in heart rate, which follows very quickly derogative effects, as we're talking about. Right? Increased heart rate, adrenaline has an immediate effect on the heart rate, accelerating the same, which in turn can have detrimental effect on both your physiology and your cognitive thinking and decision-making process. You are no longer cognitive. If you are suddenly taken by surprise, you with that rabbit in the headlights, your heart's beating in your head, you are no longer cognitive. It makes fucking sense. So that's going to be common to the majority of, you know, powder puff, limp-wristed fucking liberal type thinking mentalities that you see today. I mean, they're just fucking powder puff soft. They're being bred to be powder puff soft, so there's no resistance. So you ain't got a fucking clue what I'm talking about in terms of experiencing that, being familiar with it, controlling it and utilising it in a more functional way. Say somebody who had a violent upbringing, somebody who was put in harm's way a lot. So a police officer, a soldier, a bodyguard, a doorman, fireman, you get the idea. Regular exposure to adrenaline creates a desensitization. So there would be one of the other recommendations of how do you get a handle on this. So the first would be, first of all, get researched. Understand what's happening. Fear is just anticipation of an unknown outcome. You don't know what's going to happen, so therefore you're fearful. This is not that. This is adrenaline triggered by a natural biochemistry after a response triggered in the brain that there's an alarm. I should be fretful, careful. Right? So when this happens, your cognitive brain shuts down and replaced with the limbic system. This is where now your ability to make tactical decisions and think are impaired. This is why good combative training focuses on two elements. First, you got the most important is the emotional software. The first is the physical hardware. That's what most people prioritise. The physical hardware, right? So is your hard skills, your strikes, your takedowns, your blitzkrieg, yeah? Your counter-offensive, your toolbox, your combative toolbox is your hard skills, is your physical hardware. Right? These are principle-based and usually tactically driven. You know, fucking it first, keep going, don't stop till he's down, get fucking gone. A principle tactic, right? Everything is geared around the three principles of close quarter battle: surprise, speed and violence of action. So that's what we train. But it's driven by your emotional software. So your emotional software is what they say in NLP circles. They say is how you think, how you communicate to yourself, how you think back. How you think affects how you feel. How you feel affects what you do. And what you do affects the results you get back. Right? So it needs to be a productive chain, doesn't it? You know, a pre-fight, a perspective, pre-adrenal stress perspective. The ideal would be that you could completely manage the emotional state that you find yourself in and stay cognitive. That would be the ideal. That's the ideal of a lot of high-level operators. So going back to the colour codes, condition white switched off, condition yellow alert and aware, condition orange state of alarm, condition red state of action is necessary now, fight or flight, etc. Well, sometime after Colonel Cooper made this, I believe it was an influence from the US military, somewhere along the line they made a condition black. And condition black in military context meant all fucking bets are off, what will be, but what it means more to civilians is panic, breakdown of physical and mental performance, right? So that's when you are gone beyond 175 beats per minute. You are on an emotional crash down. That's the one you've got to avoid at all costs, and that's going to be most common to somebody who has never experienced adrenaline in their life, who's never been in a threatening situation in their life. So the colour codes are very poignant to that. Some people in this field, Richard Branham would be one I would recommend that you look at on the psychology. He talked about the very elusive condition grey, which was also talked about by Siddle. Condition grey is where you are at a heart rate above 175 beats per minute, but you are still in a condition yellow level of performance. So what that means is I'm in a very high stress state in terms of heart rate and chemical cocktail and physiology, but I'm still cognitive. So I'm calm enough to stay cognitive. So what you would look for in a combatives trainee, what I would look for in myself would be a tier 1 level of physical performance under extreme stress while I'm still cognitive. Having the ability to control it. So really what that is what we call state management. So the two areas of most neglected within the psychology of any martial method are what we call psychom, the psychology of combat, psychology of conflict, psychology of combatives, of violence, right? There are two primary areas that relate to that. One is what's called state management. Another is called state access. So define state first of all. State could be depicted as your current mood, how you feel and how you hold your body, and your breathing pattern and how you're thinking. All those things may be congruent, but it's how you are right now, right? So we go through different states every day. We go through a tired state when I get up in the morning, and I have a shower and I'm exhilarated, and then I have breakfast, and then I go out, and then I get stressed with driving, or then I get to where I am and something ain't gone my way and I get a bit pissed off or something. We all go through these emotional states, right? In and out of good and bad and ebbing and flowing moods. Not necessarily bad, but just different states. Well, emotional state in relation to dealing with violence, that's where we're really focused on here, would be the consideration. So if I am suddenly faced with violence and the adrenaline becomes too much for me and I can't control it, then I'm not going to operate at a physical level. It's just not going to happen. So you need to get familiarity first of all via research, study. Well, actually, it's not fear. Fear is just anticipation of an unknown outcome. I don't know what's going to happen, so therefore I'm fearful. Adrenaline is a natural chemical cocktail that's delivered to the body to help you out. It is actually, there is positive effects among it. We continue with the effects here. Loss of fine motor skill, well, that happens very, very quickly, to be honest. At 90 beats beyond, you're starting to lose your ability to do that, but that's basically because blood will leave the surface of the skin of the extremities, which will in turn create an impairment to any fine motor skill requiring dexterity or hand-eye coordination. But on a positive note, gross motor skills, so any large motor movement that incorporates multi-joints of the body, so a push, a pull, a turn, a slam, a throw, a punch, a strike, a fucking boot in the bollocks, anything that's just large and gross motor is actually enhanced under adrenal stress. Right. Incidentally, there's several things that are enhanced. So gross motor skills enhanced, increased strength, speed. You know, you're forced to do something instinctually where you kill or be killed, or you or them. Instinctively, we are hardwired to protect us, and that would allow you to employ adrenaline where you are faster, stronger, and somewhat anaesthetised to pain. Not a massive degree. Someone cut your arm off with a fucking chainsaw, you're not going to manage that. But if someone punched you in the fucking face, broke your jaw, broke your nose, broke an orbital socket, in that moment you could still fight on. You could manage and carry on. So adrenaline can be utilised. It's, as Jeff used to say, friend of exceptional people. It's newcomer Russell Jarmusty on this page has said, you know, learn to use that bastard. And fucking right, yeah, learn to use it. It will fuel you, right? But if you don't understand it, you get beaten by it. So the first thing you've got to do in terms of controlling fear or adrenaline is dispel the myths. Right, do your research. What's happening to the body? What effects does it have? Which ones do I recognise if I've been there before, etc., etc. So a couple of things that happen. Nausea, right? Your adrenaline may cause vomiting or the feeling of vomiting. Again, this is nature's way of eliminating waste that you don't need to carry. So if you've got a previously undigested meal still sat in your stomach, then you throw it up, get it out to make you lighter, therefore you'll move quicker, more efficient. And it's the same reason there's a compulsive need to empty the bowels or the bladder. So most women that I know, if it kicked off on a Friday night and you're back in on Saturday and you know there's rumours of a comeback, everyone's in the toilet having a piss, emptying the old bladder. And quite often they're bowels. Right? So again, nature's way of eliminating waste so you move more efficiently. But what does it say when you feel like you're going to shit yourself? It says you're scared, doesn't it? So understand, dispel the myth. Voice quiver. So when you go from parasympathetic nervous system to sympathetic nervous system, back onto the generator, your body shuts down certain functions that it doesn't need. So salivary glands, they're shut down because they're not going to be needed any time immediately to eat any food, because the last thing you are is fucking hungry. So salivary glands shut down, which in turn create like a cotton mouth. Your mouth's really dry, like really pasty. Like when you've had good weed, it makes you really pasty in the mouth. And it dries out your salivary glands, so your vocal cords quiver. Hence the reason when somebody shouts, "Stay back," it comes out as "stay back," which can happen. Now, person just doing that won't understand why his voice is quivered. Person on the other receiving end of that message is not going to go, "Oh, hold on, your amygdala's triggered your escalation in heart rate. You've got this chemical cocktail of adrenaline and ephedrine and all these other things dumped into your body to help you out, and your salivary glands have just dried up, so now you sound like a little girl." But normally that's just, your voice would be fine. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, "Huh, he sounds scared." So knowledge dispels myth. You've got to do your research, right? Well, tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is quite early, 150 beats per minute beyond as it escalates. This is when your peripheral focus starts to close. You get what's called positional dysphagia. And during this positional dysphagia, you are fixated on what's in front, but you are oblivious to what's to the side. So nature's way of letting you focus on a threat so that you can deal with the problem, fine, productive. Most of this stuff's positive, but flawed, because it puts you at great risk from the flanks, which, you know, the enemy knows innately, instinctively. Auditory exclusion. It's auditory exclusion when you get some kind of impairment. You can't hear, you can't make out noise. So quite often with police officers, if there was incident with a firearm, there was how many shots fired, they might say 2, they might say 3, they might just not know, they can't recall. Auditory exclusion. One of the ones that it can lead to, particularly if you are unfamiliar with violence, you are unfamiliar with the feeling of adrenaline, you have no idea of the biochemistry I've just talked about, and if all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you're in condition right, you're fucking oblivious, and you just realised immediate threat, heart rate's escalated so much, gone straight to black. Right? This is how you would feel. You get what's called yellow fever. So adrenaline, is certainly adrenal dump, can evoke in its extreme feelings of helplessness, of abject terror. Pre-flight adrenaline can also bring on an extreme feeling of depression and foreboding. This can easily be controlled and negated by reframing your perspective. So what do I mean by that? It goes back to what I said. How you think affects how you feel. How you feel affects what you do. What you do affects the results you get back, right? So your pre-fight perspective, how you think, is fucking important. So I said it before, you know, if you imagine you're in an elevator, 2 fuckers get in the elevator, they're agitated, off their nut on something, angry looking. Start getting animated, punching the walls of the lift. Doors shut, just you and these two. Now you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that trepidation kicking in, aren't you? If you're unfamiliar with it, you might slip into denial, but you're basically going to be adrenalised. Right? Well, how you think right now affects everything. So if you go right now, oh fuck, I'm stuck in here with these two. They're going to kill me. Well, it's done. It's over. Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So you've got to reframe your perspective. So what would be a better perspective in that situation when you're two on one in an elevator with two cunts that are just about to kick off? Perspective best would be, you two cunts are stuck in here with me. And now I get a carte blanche to fucking test all my tools. So how you think affects how you feel. Now, that's something that you got to preordain and precondition in yourself. And when you do any type of UC or combatives type training, it's installed at the same time as the physical skill set. So we're striving to install the emotional software with the physical hardware. So emotional software, begin with your street smarts. So if you practice self-protection, you're a student of self-protection, you are a combatives trainee, and you have a fucking handle on what's going on in the world and how it's deteriorating, then you'll know your self-preservation is fucking important. In which case, you should be somewhat street smart. So your emotional software begins with your street smarts, your situational awareness, your ability to potentially pick up pre-threat recognition of cue before it happens. Well, that's really going around your life in condition yellow and picking up on something orange here. Now, how you handle it here in condition orange is you've just become from an aware state to alarm. Something's happened in my immediate environment that would trigger me to do something potentially drastic, if you like. That would be street smarts, situational awareness, pre-threat recognition, saying yes, confirm, condition orange, potential threat. What happens next is everything, because mental preparation is required in order for you to manage the states that are coming next. So remember, we talked about state, how your current mood and your physiology. So if you're depressed, you feel down and your body slumps. If you're buoyant and happy, you're upraised like so. If you are, how your physiology is the actual mirror side of your emotional state, how you feel. So it's very, very real and very, very prominent in that. Your mental preparation will be what is going to allow you to manage adrenaline. So fight duress will trigger adrenaline, and adrenaline will in turn have derogatory effects on your performance in a physical sense, regardless, of how good you think you are, how many skills you got, what weapons you carry. If you had very limited intel and you didn't deal with that intel very well, and you went from parasympathetic to sympathetic nervous system quickly because you were massively adrenalized, then you are only probably a third of efficient as you normally would be in a cognitive state. In which case your training needs to reflect putting you closer to that. So in simulation and scenario training, we bring on the effects of fight duress. So fight duress effects will be fatigue, will be confusion, disorientation, pain. Adrenaline can be induced by peer pressure, by expecting a high performance in front of all of your peers, etc. And with good role players, dialogue, simulation, aggression and everything else, and the knowledge that, well, you could get fucking knocked out for sure here, because they've got to, once the simulation goes, they want to knock you out, you've got to stop them, simple as that. So there's a chance you could get hurt. Quite often what this will trigger is the adrenal state. So you'll go into a combative simulation scenario drill once ready, that would be done with aggression role play, environmental changes, complete spontaneity, non-compliance, etc., and that will induce an escalation in your heart rate. And in that moment, when it triggers adrenaline, you can hit a limbic state really easy. Because the bottom line is, your subconscious brain doesn't know the difference between real or simulated to be perceived as real, or visualized that's real. So visualization is very, very powerful. I'll talk about visualization on another time. But it's possible for you to visualize internally and it to change your emotional and physical state. You know, that's powerful. So what you want really to counter violence in its effective sense, you've got to keep things fucking simple, but you want a plan A and a plan B. Right, the plan A is be fucking proactive, hit first, keep going till there's nothing left to fight about. Plan B would be cover, crash, counter, get inside, regather your faculties if the other person's gone first, and then bring the fight back to you. That in a physical sense is your plan A and B. But if we strip it right down to its dynamics, right? Physical elements should be stripped to absolute bare bones essentials, to a good preemptive strike, left and right, so you've got main artillery, backed up with blitzkrieg through the continuous assault. Good tactical plan. You get fucking armed with bad attitude, you've got a good shot, so if you go first. But the psychological elements that are associated to that are, first of all, you have to have that ability to access that antisocial badass persona that's capable of taking care of fucking business. So that's not just something you're going to pull out of that. If you've never thought about it, you've got to condition those things. First thing you've got to do, accept the fact that the fucking world is violent and it could come your fucking way, right? Instead of fretting about how you're going to feel about it and, you know, get informed, do something about it. So what could you do about learning to control adrenaline better? Well, you could do your own research into what I've just talked about and see the biological chemistry that's happening to your body so that you've got scientific data. Oh right, that happens, that'll happen. Now then take into account that there's an individual thing to that. So somebody who's got no experience is going to find a harder time with that than somebody with masses of experience. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you that exposure to a similar event allows you to become desensitized, hence the importance of scenario training and replication in your training, done efficiently, effectively, you know, with body armor kit and everything else like we've talked about, but it should induce an adrenal response. What you're doing now, if you're training inside of a non-cognitive state, in limbic brain if you like, you are programming your subconscious. So your subconscious brain will always do what's best for you as long as it has a choice. So if it's never had a real adrenaline-inducing live experience of violence before, there's no data in the subconscious hard drive to recall the information. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. If you have had a bad experience before, then there's stored data, depending on how you did in a situation. Let's say you got ambushed and you got totally attacked where you didn't do very well. Well, at that point in time, the only choice your subconscious brain had was hypervigilance, capitulation, freeze up, it'll be over quickly, because it didn't know any counter response, hence the reason people go to training. And if you then train, particularly if you take your training right through to it triggers that survival stress response in you, which don't underestimate, you can do extremely well, then with coaching you are, instead of freezing, doing the physical thing, performance. And if you don't perform hard enough, you do it again. And if it's not fucking fast enough, you do it again. If you weren't aggressive enough or decisive enough, you do it again. And you keep doing it until you get it right. In simulation and scenario training, over a period of time, you induce those feelings.